Alrighty, so in this vid here we have a 15 plus WRX and we are going to be rolling the fenders and throwing in some Faction Fab coilovers. I actually have these on my Bug-Eye WRX. They're kind of an intro level coilover. I ended up, I just kind of ended up with them. But I'd say my review on them, they're actually not bad. They ride really nice. They look presentable. Probably not a track grade coilover, but if you're just looking for low and a decent ride, they are, yeah, not bad for the money. Alrighty, so we have one done there. That should do. We didn't get any paint cracking because we were using a heat gun. That doesn't always necessarily mean you're not going to get cracks. Sometimes it just happens, but keeping it as warm as you possibly can without letting it bubble usually does the trick. So I do recommend, which I did off camera, cleaning out the lip before you start. You don't want to roll junk in there. We also get some grease up in there, so any stuff that does stick in there, now that it's kind of a trough, won't begin to decay the metal. Something to note when doing your front fenders, sometimes even your rear, is you're getting rid of the lip that the fender liner used to sit on. So sometimes you're going to end up doing a fender liner delete, or in this case it just kind of gets back into that lip. We're not going like credit card flat on the front. I don't believe it is necessary for our goal. We are just doing what is needed, and now we will move on to the next one. So there we are, rolled up on the rear. So pretty tight. That item I removed is some factory rubber that goes over the lip. This is put on before the car is painted. So I mean, you do get, I guess, the start of some paint cracking. How you deal with that is, some fine sandpaper, get the edges off of it. And then again, you can go over it with grease or a touch-up paint like that. There's bare metal from the rubber coming off. This is inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it because of the way that it's gonna bend as it goes. But that is it. So with the fenders rolled, we are now going to remove the old suspension and install this. Before we do, what I like to do, so these are able to continue future service and adjustment, spin this whole collar off. Alright, so there they are, all oiled up. All the top collars oiled up, all the way down where they slide into the sleeves. I've used the Rust Check Green for this. It's good, it's sticky, it repels water. For the most part, This is going to be inside of the sleeve, so it's not going to get much water in there. Also, the oil keeps the water out because oil. So now we will reassemble these and start to remove the old suspension, get these guys in, and start to work on our ride height. All right, we've got the sleeves back on the bottom of the coilovers. This is also really important to note. Obviously, when you're adjusting them, you can go by 1, 2, 3 turns as you're working on your height. But now that we've taken them apart, putting them back on, they all need to at least be even to start. So on the front, I've just put the sleeve completely flush with the shock body. Same with the rears. I've just gone till they've bottomed out in there, so that's going to be maximum low. But at least from there, let's say I go up 10 turns on this, then it will be symmetrical when I go up 10 turns on this. And again, the shock body just flush with the sleeve. So then that makes our adjustment symmetrical and simple rather than, you know, having to send your car out for corner balancing or something like that. But this usually does the trick, keeps it pretty accurate. Alrighty, now we are into the stock suspension removal. He actually already had some lower riser springs on this. That's why it was so low to begin with. If you're doing this DIY, you can achieve the install, but your alignment will never be 100%, especially when you've got camber plates coming into factor. So this is the top camber bolt, how we do it whenever we do service or anything like that as well, relating these. We'll use a paint marker and draw a line on the bolt corresponding with, let's say, the spindle there, since the shock's going to be out of the equation. But again, it's not going to be 100%. He's still going to have to get an alignment to get everything perfect. So we'll go ahead. Let's say our line could be this guy. Goes up. And then it will be with that. So that will get us in the relative desired zone. But again, you're still going to need an alignment. All right, now we are going to move the strut top nuts, and we'll be able to take the shock out. Alright, we got our bolts out. Another thing in assembly, make sure you get some grease on this. It just helps for adjustment and not seizing. So don't let your axle pull out of your transmission, because it's a whole nother fun activity you probably don't want to get into. So there's our shock out. So you want to keep it pressed like that. Don't let it fall forward, or there goes your axle. So we got a little kickstand there with our hammer. These ones actually don't have a front camber plate. I see this often in the DIY realm. The camber plate, I'll show you when it's in the car, but people often put them in incorrectly, so they're adjusting caster rather than camber. You don't really want to do that. This is our front driver shock. I can tell because of the way it is. So the brake line there, ABS line there. If it was the wrong side, they would be on opposite sides, and you would figure that out pretty quickly. Alright, so how I like to put the front shocks in is I'll put the top hat through first, get the nuts just lightly on, and then if needed, you can put a jack on your control arm to bring the spindle up to meet with the shock. There we are, dangling away. You can see there I got some good distance to get that spindle to that shock. And so with the shocks loosely installed in the car, as I was mentioning about the camber plates, so the camber plate adjustment will go from side to side, not back to front. Alright, now we've got both control arms supported by some jacks. Now we got to close up that gap there and get the bolts in. That's it, fellas. Closed up the gap. We can see if our thing fits in there. Not bad. A little wiggly jiggly, but I can't pull it out with my hands, so I'm satisfied with that. Over here it is a nut and bolt, whereas before it used to just be a bolt into a weld nut. Not a big deal. I think for aesthetics I will put the bolt going the opposite direction, so it just looks a little tidier. Alright, shed some light on this. So we got our bolt going in a better direction, it just looks nicer that way. We've got our paint line lined back up. Again, that may be irrelevant because I think we're going to have to max out on the negative here. Next step, now we can tighten up these 12s to pull it up into position. I undid this control arm bolt to get this to drop down, give me a little more wiggle room, and we will slip the new one in. Step is get the bolt back through the shock, get the control arm lined up and the bolt back through there. I'm using a jack to lift it up because I ain't got the muscles power. Alright, with everything back in place underneath and tightened up on both sides, we can lower the car down and tighten up the strut top nuts. Alrighty, we are back with the final stage here. I've put all the wheels on. I only put 2 lugs in because you're going to be taking them on and off quite a few times till you get your ride height right. For me, my hoist will pick up pretty low cars, but I feel like this is going to be too low and the car isn't going to fully settle before my hoist does, so I put down some of my lowrider blocks. That is the height we are working with. It looks like we have gone up in height in the front. So onto the rear, this is actually as low as these coilovers will go. So looking at it straight on, I would say the top of the tread is parallel with the fender. See that gap? He could now fit way bigger tires, or he can throw in probably 15 mil spacers to achieve that strata fitment. As for the fronts, we've definitely got lots more we can play with there, so we are going to probably turn down the coilovers, let's say 15 turns, and see where we end up. Alright, with the coilover adjustment, you can see I've got this coil collar. This is the locking one for the actual height adjustment. I've got it brought up about the distance of the wheel gap we have that we want to get rid of. So on this guy with a black paint marker, I'm gonna mark there. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Now as I spin the shock body into the sleeve, I can count how many rotations I do, and then again, keeping it symmetrical. So I'm gonna start with 15 rotations, spinning it downward, thus lowering the car. then we'll see where we're at. All right, we've got both sides turned down, 15 churns. We got our wheels back on. Let's see where this sucker sits. So there's my finger going straight in. So I'm just touching the top of the tread. The only thing is, if we go much lower on the front, we're going to start to rake it out a little bit. Fiat mint. But yeah, so now what we'll do, put the car back up. Even though my rear is as low as it can go already, I've still got to lock in all the collars. The preload on the springs was already set, but again, I'm going to lock them in now that the shock is actually fixed to the car. You can get a better tighten that way. And then we will put on all the lug nuts, torque it, and take her for a test drive. Here we are with them tightened all up. What you'll do is you'll tighten this collar down to the sleeve, put your coilover wrench on it, whack it with a hammer a few times on the end of the coilover wrench to get it nice and tight. Also, your spring collars, you'll use 2 coilover wrenches going the opposite direction, and again, the one that you are moving to tighten them together, you'll hit the end of that with a hammer so they're nice and firm. Well, there she is in all her glory. Definitely a little more lowerized than it was. So I'd say for the most part, like I said, I do have these in my Bug-Eye WRX as well. I think I have the grade higher than these ones because I do have camber plates on mine. But like my car, I mean, this almost rides like stock suspension, very comfy, very quiet. You don't get any of that spring boinging sound that you might get with the HSDs every time you turn the wheel. That is a common issue. Just trying to avoid that pop can now that we are living the low life. But it feels really good. Drives super straight. Steering wheel's nice and straight because we left our camber bolts where they were originally. And yeah, I'd say pretty good stuff for the money. Drives really nice. Achieved the goal of lower. We've got some impeding traffic here. We'll slow her down. This was our hot dog turn. Now we can't even hot dog out. Put on our four-ways in case there's any you know, other hot doggers coming up on us. All right, let's get the hot dog out of here. Some bumpy terrain here. Feels really nice. Overall, I'd say for the money, if you are happy with this ride height, these do drive and handle really well. Again, it's not exactly a track grade coilover, but still a really good unit for the money, and it is a very comfortable shock. It feels really nice driving and definitely kicks up the handling. I wouldn't say it's much stiffer than the lowering springs he had in there, but it does feel really nice and you know, gets the job done. Alrighty guys, well, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more, and thank you for watching.